When his parents left for a week-long vacation, leaving their teenager, Jake, home alone, he decided to explore the attic, which had been locked away for years. It was an old attic filled with dust and darkness, and had promised to be anything but interesting. However, at the top of old boxes and dusty bags, he found an ancient-looking box that had been forgotten by time. Inside that box were puppets, long forgotten by the world. The puppets were tattered and old-fashioned, and at first, Jake regarded them as nothing more than relics of the past. He even joked that they looked like characters from an old horror movie. But when night fell, and he began to hear strange, shuffling sounds emanating from the attic and eerie creaks, as if the wooden threads of the puppets were moving on their own, his jokes quickly faded. One night, while lying in his bed, he saw one of the puppets, in the form of a deranged clown, begin to move. It rose slowly but confidently to its feet. Its threads dangled in the air, and its horrifying eyes gleamed in the darkness. The puppet, which he named Piero, began to whisper its dark plans into his ear. "We crave freedom, Jake," the puppet would say, "and we can only obtain it through you." Jake felt the puppets manipulating him, forcing him to carry out dreadful tasks. They commanded him to do unspeakable things and uncover horrifying secrets hidden within the house. Once, he was compelled to enter an old, dusty storage room, where he discovered an incredibly ancient and worn-out puppet theater stage. The puppets were convinced that this was the place for their mysterious dance. In his nightmares, he witnessed all the puppets gathering in that forgotten room. They danced in a horrifying rhythm, as if their threads had been replaced with steel chains. Their voices melded with the voices of the dead, singing songs that foretold his dreadful fate. Jake, realizing that the puppets had dark and terrifying plans, began to resist. He started investigating the origins of the puppets and the series of events that had led them to this moment. He discovered that their creation was tied to ancient magic, of which even his own grandfather knew little. He understood that the only way to save himself and restore order was to destroy the box, severing the puppet's malevolent connection. The night when Jake finally dared to take this bold action became the culmination of his terror. The puppets came to life, their voices blending into a sinister choir, and they attacked him. Piero, with his haunting eyes and twisted smile, led the puppet assault. With a hammer in his hand, Jake made the final strike against the box, shattering it into pieces. The connection to the puppets was severed, and they froze in their positions. Their threads ceased to move, and their menacing eyes dulled. The house fell silent, as if nothing horrific had occurred. However, Jake knew that this was not the end. The evil he had unleashed could return, and he had to be prepared to fight it again when it came for its freedom. Thus concluded Jake's story and his encounter with the puppets, who sought to break free and unleash horror. He remained alone in the house, aware that darkness still concealed its secrets, and he was ready to battle it when it returned. It was a quiet autumn evening when Emma's parents left for the weekend, entrusting her, a responsible 17-year-old girl, with the care of the house. They packed their belongings into the car, waved goodbye, and drove off, leaving Emma standing on the porch, watching their headlights vanish around the corner. No one knew that these weekends would turn her life into a nightmare. The first night went smoothly, and Emma enjoyed her newfound freedom. She ordered pizza, watched her favorite TV shows, and relished in her solitude. But with each passing hour, an odd unease crept in. Her parents were always cautious and always kept in touch. Yet there wasn't a single call or message. By the second day, concern escalated into alarm. Emma tried to reach her parents, but their phones went straight to voicemail. She called her grandparents, thinking they might have some information, but they hadn't heard a word either. As the sun dipped below the horizon, alarm transformed into fear. Emma tried calling her parents again, but there was no response. She contacted the local police to report her parents missing. The dispatcher assured her that a search would begin, but it might take some time. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. The ominous silence in the house seemed to amplify her fears. She heard creaks and rustles that she had never noticed before. She imagined seeing moving shadows in the corners of her vision. Following days became a period of anxious waiting and endless phone calls. The police searched for her parents, but found no traces. No accidents, evidence, or suspicious activities. Her parents seemed to have vanished without a trace. Emma's friends supported her, spending nights at her place to provide emotional comfort. They tried to distract themselves with movies and games, but an uneasy atmosphere pervaded the house. It was as if something was off in that house. On the fifth night since her parents' disappearance, Emma was awakened by a strange sound from the basement. She grabbed a flashlight and descended the stairs, her friends following behind. In the dim light, they discovered that the basement door was slightly ajar. Emma's heart raced as she pushed the door open, revealing a sight that made her shudder. In the center of the basement was an old family portrait, but her parents' faces had been scratched out, replaced by dark, shapeless figures. Fear gripped Emma as she realized the basement had always been locked, and her parents had forbidden her from going near it. Neither she nor her friends could explain what they were seeing. As they ventured further into the basement, they heard whispers, a sinister voice seeming to come from all directions. It echoed in their minds, repeating an ominous message. They are with us now. Terrified, Emma and her friends rushed out of the basement, slamming the door shut behind them. They called the police, who arrived and thoroughly searched the basement, finding nothing. Days turned into weeks, yet there was still no trace of Emma's parents. The investigation yielded no results, and the whisper in the basement remained unresolved. Emma was left with the chilling possibility that her parents had disappeared forever, and that something sinister lurked in the shadows of her family home,